Singapore. From 1819, Singapore served as a trading port for British ships on their way to India. Under British colonial rule, the island was included in the Malaysian Federation. It broke away and became independent in 1965. It is a small island, measuring about 30 miles long at its widest part. Singapore is about 240 square miles in area. Singapore's most valuable resource is its relative location. Singapore is similar to Hong Kong in its development. With a good port, Singapore is a hub for ships sailing between Europe and China. It serves Southeast Asia as an entrepot, a break of bulk point, where goods are offloaded from large ships and transported to smaller vessels for distribution to the Southeast Asian community. You may be surprised to find that English is the main language used in business, government, law, and education. Malay was designed as a national language by the Singaporean government after independence from Britain in the 1960s to avoid friction with Singapore's Malay speaking neighbors of Malaysia and Indonesia. It has a symbolic rather than a functional purpose. Radical and religious harmony is regarded by Singaporeans as a crucial part of Singapore's success and played a part in building a Singaporean identity. Singapore has made good strategic utilization of its geographic location by serving as a distribution center for goods and materials processed in the region. Crude oil from Indonesia is unloaded and refined here. Raw materials are shipped in, manufactured into finished products, and then shipped out to global markets. Since Singapore is small, it has had to concentrate on manufacturing goods that provide optimal profits. As an economic tiger, Singapore has transitioned through the same stages as Taiwan, South Korea, and Hong Kong to become an economic power in Southeast Asia. By the way, an economic tiger is a country show economy. Yep, that's what it says. A country show economy has grown very quickly and successfully, usually with an increased standard of living. This term usually refers to Singapore, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and South Korea. So to rephrase that, an economic tiger is a country that has shown that its economy has grown very quickly and successfully. Singapore consists of 63 islands and is a swampy place with no natural resources. Ongoing land reclamation projects have increased Singapore's land area. Some projects involve merging smaller islands through land reclamation to form larger, more functional islands. In 2010, Singapore imported almost 15 million tons of sand for its projects, the demand being such that Indonesia, Malaysia, and Vietnam have all restricted or barred the export of sand to Singapore in recent years. As a result, in 2016, Singapore switched to using polders, a Netherlands solution to reclamation, in which an area is enclosed and then pumped dry. Singapore's urbanization means that it has lost 95% of its historical forests. To combat this decline, the government has introduced the vision of making Singapore a garden city. The Gardens by the Bay is a nature park that was created for this purpose. Its flower dome is the largest glass greenhouse in the world. All production components, food goods, construction materials, and energy must be imported. Importing everything has raised the cost of living. To compete with the other Asian economic tigers in the global marketplace, Singapore has implemented severe control measures on its operations. There are harsh penalties for criminal activities and for even misdemeanor offenses. Singapore is a safe place to live because of its strict state rules. It has an authoritarian government which strives to create an attractive place for international corporations to operate. One of the objectives is to eliminate corruption and establish a business friendly environment. The government of Singapore has entered into trade agreements with two of its neighbors to provide raw materials and cheap labor. A trade triangle has been established between Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia. Malaysia and Indonesia provide Singapore with raw materials and cheap labor. Singapore provides its neighbors with technical know how and financial support. Everyone benefits. Singapore is an excellent example of the upper end of the economic spectrum in Southeast Asia. Countries like Laos or Vietnam would be at the opposite end, since they have a largely rural population based on agriculture that is just beginning to shift to the cities with industrialization. Singapore is already 100% urban, with high incomes based on high tech manufacturing and processing of raw materials. Singapore is an economic hub for Southeast Asia, complete with global airline connections, and is located on a major shipping lane. Singapore's world class port is one of the busiest in Asia.